Today, because I really do want to get back to the traditional review video structure, but also because there's not really that many interesting games worth my time to review, we're going to instead be discussing a rather recently released port of an existing game, Red Dead Redemption 2, or more specifically, its online mode, Red Dead Online. Late last year, Rockstar made the surprising but financially pragmatic move of re-releasing Grand Theft Auto Online and Red Dead Online as standalone games, completely splitting them off from the single-player content and releasing them on Steam and other platforms for $19.99 apiece, as opposed to the normal $60 price tag for the full versions of those games. Additionally, for the first few months of these two new releases, Rockstar kept them on sale at 75% off, aka $4.99 USD. And to date, based on the fact that the majority of Steam user reviews were posted either during or immediately following the conclusion of the 3-month-long 75% off sale, it stands to reason that at least a small majority of players bought in during the $4.99 sale price, if not most players altogether. Until we take a full look at the Q4 2020 and Q1 2021 financial reports from Rockstar, it's hard to get a clear picture. The reason I mention this is that in these videos I try to lay out an argument whether in the game's favor or against, whether I feel this game warrants its retail price in terms of content and quality. Because this game was extensively available for both $4.99 and now $19.99 at the end of this video, I'm going to conclude by discussing whether the game is worth it at $4.99, then also whether it's worth it at $19.99. As I get the feeling that Rockstar may at some point once again tinker with the game's sale price for lengthy periods of time, this appears to be the most pragmatic approach I can take. But with that said, let's jump onto our virtual horses and ride out into the sunset like cowboys and vigilantes of old. First thing worth noting is that the game doesn't do a whole lot of handholding, which I personally don't mind. I was never a big fan of how excessive the handholding was in the tutorial of GTA Online. I never really felt GTA Online needed a tutorial. GTA Online isn't exactly a complicated game. You rob stores and gas stations, you roam around the open world causing a whole lot of chaos, and you participate in online events both cooperatively and competitively with or against other players. Red Dead Redemption 2 leans a tiny bit more in the RPG direction than its GTA predecessor, which we'll get to piece by piece. But we'll start with the obvious one, character customization. There's a decent amount of character customization. I wouldn't call it super in-depth, definitely not compared to more traditional FPS RPG games like Cyberpunk 2077 or Fallout 4, but it does a decent enough job. I went out of my way to make one of the most hilariously ugly characters in existence, and I think I did a pretty good job, given the somewhat limited tools at my disposal. I would have hoped Rockstar would have put in a little bit more effort into the initial character creation process, but it's not terrible either, so I'm not going to kill it for that alone. However, creating your character is simply the beginning. As was the case with GTA Online, you'll have a vast number of cosmetic customization options, if you have the money to afford it, money or gold. I don't think it would surprise anyone to hear that Rockstar has of course added in a paid time saver system to the game. Unlike other games like Assassin's Creed, these do not come in the form of paid XP boosters, but rather gold bars, which, kind of like any mobile game in existence, can be used as an alternate premium form of currency, generally acquired through paying physical money in order to receive a set number of gold bars. I know the minute I bring up the fact that Rockstar's gold system is inherently and insanely unbalanced in favor of those that pay for gold packs, to the point that it's almost completely a paid-to-progress system, at least one person will inevitably leave a comment complaining and spouting that much-touted line of, "But you can earn gold for free!" So I decided to mathematically analyze that and analyze how long it would take a player to earn 25 gold bars in-game via the in-game activities for free. Or rather, I had a friend of mine do it for me, since when it comes to calculating exponential growth via algebraic formula, I'm about as useful as my 12-year-old kiddies would be. The game rewards players with a fractional gold currency system referred to as gold nuggets. A total of 100 nuggets equals 1 gold bar. Each stranger mission rewards the player with 0.04 gold bars for every 3 minutes played, for a maximum of 0.2 gold. Assuming a player maximized the amount of gold every time they played through a stranger mission, which is optimistic at best, we're looking at 1,875 minutes, or 14.6 hours, and a grand total of 125 stranger missions. And that's just to unlock 25 gold. And expect to be using a fair bit of gold not only on cosmetics, but camp upgrades as well. So if anyone tells you not to worry about gold, it's only for cosmetic upgrades, it's not, that's bullshit. You can buy guns with gold. You sometimes literally have to upgrade your camp only with gold, and buy mostly anything else of value in the world too with gold. Now if you're looking to play this game on a budget, you better be prepared to go all in time-wise, or else just open up your wallet and let Daddy Rockstar take care of you and show you a good time. Now, for those of you still unfamiliar with Red Dead Online, let's talk about stranger missions, since I kind of jumped the gun a bit a minute ago, and the other kinds of missions you can expect to encounter in the wide open world and elsewhere. There are a number of different kinds of stranger missions, starting with assassinations. Being a hired gun may be a somewhat dangerous line of work, but if you're good enough or stupid enough to consider throwing your hat in the ring, there's always more than enough work out there. I've noticed some of the targets in these missions can be a bit bullet spongy, so make sure you've got at least a couple clips of ammo and at least one medium to long range gun on hand. You don't want to run into a situation where your target is escaping and you have nothing to take them down with before they get away. Or you could just do what I did and just shoot the horse the target was riding and let the target fall to the ground, then lasso them and drag them behind me until they die, like I'm some kind of Dothraki warlord. You could consider this quite stupid, but I personally found it highly entertaining. I take pleasure in humiliating my enemies in the full sights of gods and men. Bounty hunter missions are another prominent way for you to make a quick buck if you're into that specific kind of skullduggery. Every day you can find a small array of contracts available to choose from, with various monetary rewards. You earn the maximum amount of money by bringing in the criminal alive, so killing them while easier does somewhat harm your earning potential. I say this as someone who's killed the majority of my chosen targets, though that said, it is highly entertaining to keep them alive, hog-tie them, then hurl them on the back of your horse, and listen to them scream obscene and insulting things at you while you ride across the map in order to deliver them in the hands of law enforcement. I didn't play a ton of bounty hunter missions as they weren't my particular cup of tea, but I played enough of them, probably 6 or 7, to get a basic idea of the mode. Trader and Naturalist missions were really the bread and butter of this game for me. Of all the PvE type content, these I found the most enjoyable. Sure, groups like PETA probably wouldn't think very highly of me for saying so, not that I really care, but there's something really satisfying and immersive about quietly and casually hunting certain kinds of animals for the dual reason of both acquiring some meat that I can use for food, and so I can skin them and turn their skins in for a little money on the side. Most animal skins will net you a few bucks a piece if you put in the effort to unlock the Trader and Naturalist career paths, which only probably takes an hour or two, assuming you're traveling by horseback and not using the fast travel system. You'll find it an excellent form of income. I took out a pair of legendary foxes and a legendary bear as well as 2 other small common pelts, and pulled in over $100 in one fell swoop. Granted, it should be noted that it really seemed like the world was bugged at that particular moment because the foxes didn't really react to my presence until I had already closed the distance and shot one of them at mid-range, which was easy because it didn't even move in the slightest. At which point, when I shot the first one, the second one tried running, but I took it down with 1 or 2 clean shots. At this moment, I noticed behind me that there was a third legendary animal, an Owiza bear. Unfortunately for me, this animal was not bugged, and proceeded to immediately murder me. However, I just respawned in, marched up to it like Doctor Strange coming to bargain, and killed it immediately. The person who I suspect was the hacker tried running up to me and killing me, but luckily for me, his aim was complete garbage. I'm guessing he didn't have an aimbot in addition to his other cheats. So I killed him and ran off with the legendary goodies and sold them. And that brings up an important point I want to address. The online experience is not inherently designed as a PvP-centric one, as was clearly the case with GTA Online's open world. Rather, this comes across as more of a PvPvE environment. There are clearly marked PvP-centric activities that do exist in the world, and you're very much allowed to kill other players for literally no reason whatsoever, at any point when you're just freely roaming the map, but doing so can bring with it negative consequences that don't really incentivize extensive player eliminations. Of all the players I've encountered in the free roam, I've only engaged in combat with a meager handful of them. So if you're looking at this as a game where you can just let loose your inner Columbine and go full postal, I'm afraid this game likely will not live up to those expectations. I mentioned at the start that customization is a big part of this game, and that is definitely true beyond just the initial character creation process. Over the course of my time spent in-game, I've spent about $1,000, if not a little bit more, in customizing my character to bring out their, well, I wouldn't exactly say true beauty if you've seen my character on screen for any length of time, but you would certainly agree that they're memorable at the very least. Got a very distinct, unique look, no doubt about that. Between visiting the general store and a few other vendors across the map, it's not really hard to make your character stand out from the rest. And I would argue that you can't really call yourself a Red Dead Online player until you have heavily lavished your character and weapons with an excessive amount of cosmetic customization. 2 of the things I have been fairly disappointed with so far in Red Dead Online is the number 1, lackluster number of heist-type missions, and number 2, the inherently complicated way of discovering and playing them. Heists cannot be found on the in-game map, nor does there seem to be any direct way of accessing them in the normal free roam mode, which is disappointing considering that Grand Theft Auto Online integrated heists and other cooperative activities fairly easily into the open world. All you had to do was go to your hideout and start a little mission to earn in some money for your organization. It wasn't that hard. Here in Red Dead Online, there are mechanisms built in to allow players to replay heists, but once you've played through them in the free roam, they disappear forever from there. Nor can you find them via the main menu, unlike all the PvP activities which you can queue for. The only way to replay story missions is to enter free roam, then pull up the menu, then click on the progress bar, then you click on story missions, and finally after that, you get to pick which mission you want to replay. I can almost guarantee you that neither me nor any of my friends would have thought to look here on our own. I only recently figured out how to do this while working on this review video by Googling the answer online. If I have to Google how the fuck to navigate your menu, then you as a developer really need to do a bit more work in making it a little bit easier for players to figure that out in-game. I should not be using external resources to figure out what the hell is going on in your game. Transportation options in the open world, kind of an important factor in any large-scale open-world game, was fairly well handled here. At any time, you have a number of different options to choose from. You can run on foot, which actually isn't a bad option sometimes, in situations where you're running up or down steep inclines or declines, or in heavily forested areas, etc. The more you run, the more you level up your stamina, and in turn the longer and more efficiently you can run in the future. You can ride your horse, which is sometimes the preferred way to travel for short to medium range trips, or you can fast travel, ideally in cases where the prospect of manually riding your horse would arguably waste a good deal of your time. You might assume, well, if you can fast travel, why would you ever go anywhere on foot or on horseback? And there is a consequence to that. You need to first unlock the fast travel locations, and once you do, traveling between them costs money. The farther away your desired location is from your current location, the higher the price will be to fast travel to it. Prices can be as low as around 60 cents and as high as up to around $10, at least as far as my experience with the system goes. There might be one or two locations that cost less than 60 cents or more than $10 to travel to, but we're just talking ballpark figures here. Either way, unless you're really looking to burn a hole in your character's wallet, I recommend avoiding fast travel unless you're looking to get somewhere far away really quick. There are just many other things more worth spending your money on. If you're spending the majority of your money in-game on fast travel, of all things, then I'm sorry, you're just not playing Red Dead Online properly. Another alternate travel option that is arguably better than riding your horse, but has the trade-off of being somewhat more restrictive, is the train. There is a train that constantly circles the Red Dead Online map. It's got a pretty wide loop that runs across the majority of the more populated cities and towns present in the game, plus almost all of the incredibly diverse biomes at some point or another. If you're like me, a trader and a naturalist, there's really no better way of casually getting across the world than the train. Using the train to browse around the world until we find some decent or potentially high-value animals to hunt or capture is not only a great way to get around, it is the way. This is the way. Assuming, of course, you're able to dispose of the default NPC train driver without attracting undue attention from law enforcement, because that can be a little bit problematic, shall we say. Not that it really matters to me in the long term. In the span of maybe 20 hours of playing, I'm already at maximum dishonor on my morality scale. Maybe it's the few hundred random NPCs I've brutally executed like I was reenacting the Purge, or maybe it's just my charming personality, I'm not sure. There are a handful of missions that you need a certain amount of positive morality in order to qualify for, but overall, as far as I've seen, the morality meter doesn't really impact the experience to any significant degree. One of the biggest problems with Red Dead Online, and arguably one of the only prominent reasons why I'm hesitant to otherwise recommend it entirely for those seeking the definitive Wild West experience, is the lack of incentive to replay story missions, as well as the excessive repetitive grind, not only monetarily but also in the gameplay sense, and just the emptiness of the world to some extent. Sure, there are a lot of locations that visually are quite nice, but all of them feel somewhat very samey. Aside from the aesthetic differences, you usually get the same handful of vendors with little variety. It wouldn't take much to fix this. You make it so each town's vendor offers a slightly different inventory than the rest, with some items being regional that you can't buy from anywhere else. You introduce more minigames. I have no idea why Rockstar seemed perfectly able to add blackjack and other card games to the main Red Dead Redemption 2 campaign, but simultaneously seemed woefully incapable of adding the same thing to Red Dead Online. Especially when you consider they would mostly just be duplicating the code, the assets, and the animations from the single-player portion into the multiplayer world. Would it take some work? Sure, but not much. Also, where the hell are private sessions? Grand Theft Auto Online has had this for years now, if not from the very start. But Red Dead Online's had over 2 years now, and they've still not added private session support, and I have no idea why. And for a game all about customization and letting you be your own man on the final stretches of untamed wilderness, why the hell are we unable to buy property and develop our own homes? It would be kind of refreshing after playing years of Grand Theft Auto Online and seeing that game's sleek modern homes to have something a bit more grounded, old-fashioned, and rustic to call home. Getting money to buy a home was one of the only reasons I ever spent money in Grand Theft Online. Surely, if no other reason than to incentivize other players like me to invest in the game, Rockstar should have replicated this awesome immersive feature. Maybe they will eventually, I doubt it, but it's possible. It's been 2 years and it's still not here yet, so I'm not very confident it will ever make it to the game. And this isn't an early access game, so I don't want to hear bullshit about it being still a work in progress, and how it's not fair to criticize a game so early into its lifespan. You can mount that defense with an early access game made by a small team, but you can't with Rockstar, one of the biggest and most successful development teams of all time, backed by one of the most powerful publishers of all time. Red Dead Online is a well-crafted game that stops short of fulfilling its full potential in every possible way. It does a lot of things well, and I want to be clear about that. It does a lot of things well, but it by no means innovates, and in many ways it's a far more limiting and frankly disappointing experience than Grand Theft Auto Online, in terms of replay value and long-term customization. I would definitely recommend it at the $5 level, and probably for the full $20 as well. It's good at least for the first 10 or 12 hours of play. After that, it really depends on how you feel about the world at large. If you enjoy being in it, great. If you're turned off by the disappointingly limited amount of minigames and activities, I entirely understand. And if you dread the idea of the world mostly becoming an empty husk of just repeatable stranger missions and bounties once you complete the story missions, then I strongly recommend not getting it. Depending on what kind of player you are, it can be long-term either a solid but unremarkable experience, or a dull and pointless one. On that note though, that's where I think I'm going to wrap it up for today. Let me know what you think of Red Dead Online in the comments down below. Have you played it? Did you enjoy your time with it? If not, what do you think the game lacked that prevented you from fully enjoying it? I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say about that. I do love having conversations in the comments section. Sometimes I don't always agree with some of the opinions I read and respond to, but I strongly believe in having an open, back and forth conversation in the comments section. As long as we're all at least trying to be polite and not just trading back and forth insults, whatever you've got to say here is fairly welcome here. If you want to support the work I do in this channel, please do consider subscribing and clicking the bell to get notified when I upload future videos. I don't currently feature sponsorships on the channel, and I don't really shill for a Patreon page or something similar. I don't ask people to give me money. All I ask is that if you enjoy this kind of content and want to see more of it, at least consider subscribing and clicking the bell, because YouTube makes it really hard for small creators like me to grow. And doing both of those things somewhat forces YouTube to make sure you see my content when it goes live. My end of year goal is to cross over 2,000 subscribers. Earlier this year I made a public pledge that if the channel crosses over 2,000 subscribers by December 31st, I will donate $100 to the Team Trees nonprofit initiative, a group dedicated to reducing our carbon footprint and repairing the damage done by environmental disasters by planting millions of new trees every year. So if you want to help me do a little good and give back to the world, there's another reason for you to subscribe and nudge me closer to fulfilling my pledge. This is WarriorDan signing out. Stay awesome everybody. Stay safe and peace out.